people, but what they're really doing is sucking the lifeblood out of the private sector in this nation.
Mr. Hoyer.
In the last administration, we lost almost 9 million jobs. We were in a deep, deep hole when this administration took office. Since that time, under the Recovery Act, which we passed just 31 days after President Obama took office, we have either gained or saved 3 million jobs. Now, if you lose 9 million and gain 3 million, you still have an extraordinary deficit. So what have we done? We've cut taxes on small businesses 16 times. We've said if you hire a new employee that is unemployed, we'll excuse the FICA tax. So you don't have to pay that. Not only that, if you keep them on a year, we'll give you a $1,000 bonus. Now, my friend says the federal government can't create jobs. Apparently, nobody up here is listening to me. I hope you are back there. We've created thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs in St. Mary's County, in Prince George's County, and in Charles County over the last 18 years. Thousands of them, and all you have to do is ride down 235 to know that's the fact. Now, the fact is that I believe that we need to continue to build jobs. My time is very brief, so I won't go into the Make It in America, but I'm going to talk to you about that.
Thank you, Mr. Lawler.
Let me try to go at this from a bipartisan position just for a second. If you're going to spur job creation and growth, we have to be realistic about where jobs came from. I've said in many forums, if everyone worked for the federal government, then how would anyone get paid? Federal government employees, bless their hearts, I'm one of them as a Marine officer, we get paid because of tax dollars. Tax dollars that are generated from businesses, private businesses, and everyday citizens. If we're going to pull the unemployment rate down, we have to create private jobs. We can't keep creating government jobs and call that job creation, because that's money coming from private businesses to pay for those that are government employees. I just want to do this so simple that everyone on the dais can follow. It's very important for us to make sure the atmosphere in our country works well so private business can afford to continue to be innovative, inventive, and hire people. $1.74 trillion out there not being spent. Why? Because private business doesn't want to spend the money, because they don't have confidence in every day in our current leadership. When we change that leadership, when we get back to the fundamentals of lower taxation specifically for businesses, if you expect to penalize business, even if you call them the wealthy, if you expect to penalize them because of the success that they've had, and then expect them to hire people, it's about like going home and telling your husband he's an idiot and expect him to work for you. You can't cut your nose off to spite your face. If we can generate business to open up their doors of employment, they'll get it done for us. I don't have enough time to go into detail.
The next question will start with Mr. Hoyer. Would you support a constitutional amendment that would require a balanced budget?
I did. I voted for it. I have done that. The reason I've done that is because it is extraordinarily difficult if you do not have an extrinsic force outside. Now, my party did not support that. Some people talked about not following as a team your party. In this case, I voted for the balanced budget amendment, and I voted for it because I believed that you need an extrinsic constraint. You have 435 members of the House of Representatives elected to represent their districts and the people they represent. And if they don't have an extrinsic constraint, then they will simply add on. Frankly, that's what's happened. Now, very frankly, again, my friend Mr. Lawler, who's been here a short time in our state, doesn't apparently understand me. He says, I don't understand. The jobs that I'm talking about that have been created, so you understand, of the 2,657 jobs that are now at NESE, 1,678 of them are private businesses, private contractors. At the NESE base, we have 2,200 contractors and only 450 civilian and 7 military. These are private sector jobs. Apparently, I can't get that across to Mr. Lawler, or he chooses to ignore it. My time is up, unfortunately.
Mr. Lawler.
Wow, I'm so glad I get this chance to go second in rotation for this one. A great lesson on contractor jobs. But last I checked, contractor jobs contract with the government, so it's our tax dollars that are paying them. A little disconnect there, John, a little disconnect. He said he voted for the constitutional amendment, and I'm proud of him for that, but for some reason, over 4 years as the majority leader, he hadn't been able to balance one. In fact, since we're going to go there, we left Washington, D.C. without even passing a budget, but instead campaigning, which I don't blame you for that, sir. So if we're going to talk about what we've done, let's ensure that we complete the story. Would I support a constitutional amendment? Absolutely, but I will go one better. I will work bipartisanly with everyone involved to ensure that is the first order of business. We have to present a balanced budget, increase consumer confidence that will bring in additional revenues. We can get our country back working and lower unemployment rates again.
Mr. Schickel.
Amen.
I apologize. I was enjoying their exchange so much.
You want the question?
Please
Me
repeat the
too.
question.
Me too.
Would you support a constitutional amendment that would require a balanced budget?
You know, if by chance the wonderful people of the 5th District decide to elect me, yes, I would support legislation of that matter. I really can't say for sure whether or not that could actually get put into place. And quite frankly, even if it did, I'm pretty sure that our government leaders would just try and find ways around it anyway, which they do all the time. You know, there's been, I can't name them off the top of my head, but there's been plenty of times when laws have been passed that said that we are no longer going to do whatever we are not going to do anymore, and then you find out a few years later that they found some loophole, or that they put some obscure loophole in there that just allowed them to get around that law anyway. But again, I did enjoy the exchange between my colleagues.
This question will begin with Mr. Lawler. The question concerns health care reform. How can health care be provided for an additional 30 million or more people without affecting service quality?
Wow, that's an outstanding question. And to answer it directly, I'm not sure if it can, but I can tell you that if we're going to fix our health care problem in our country, we're going to have to do so in a bipartisan spirit with a focus on the free market and not necessarily a focus on the government. We have to attack the problem of health care, which are premiums. The premiums are extremely too high. Some folks would believe that it's the same old rhetoric happening over and over again, but I'll tell you this much. Let's give it a shot and do it the right way. Let's do it constitutionally. Let's attack tort reform. Let's make sure that you can't sue someone $16 million for stumping your toe on your property. Let's ensure that we allow small insurance companies so they can compete across state lines for your business, thus lowering the price structure. I've talked to doctors at Prince George's Southern Maryland Hospital, Savista, so many. I didn't get these ideas out of my head. I asked the experts the best way to come at this thing. And we can do it without obligating an additional 16,000 IRS agents to the rosters of government to run after you to ensure that you buy health care. And also provide loopholes for those that want to jump in and out based upon their pre-existing conditions, let alone allowing government to compete with everyday private insurance companies for businesses by using their tax dollars. These things are not the right way to go. The biggest opposition many had to this health care bill wasn't the bill itself as much as it was a 2,000-page unread, force jammed through my throat, tell me how you like it kind of thing. That's the problem.
Thank you. Mr. Schickel.
Now, while I agree that changes did need to be made, I feel that this health care bill was the absolute wrong direction to go. Now, when this health care bill was passed, we were told that it gave our government power to force us to buy health insurance because we weren't being forced to buy a specific policy from a specific company. Now, The Lord of the Rings has more basis in fact than that. Now, we are also told that we shouldn't be worried that if future governments try to force us to engage in other activities that we didn't want to do, that we shouldn't be worried about that fact, because if that happened, then the courts would decide that that was unconstitutional. Now, anyone with a passing knowledge of how our government works realizes that you don't get to just punt that responsibility to the courts. The legislature is supposed to make sure that a bill is constitutional before they vote on it. Now, if somebody who's been in office for 30 years doesn't understand that, then they really don't deserve to continue in office, because those are the words of Mr. Hoyer. We shouldn't be worried that the government's going to try and force us to purchase anything or engage in other activity, because the courts will just make sure that that doesn't happen. Well, I can tell you myself that that does not give me great comfort.
Okay, this will be the last of the questions.
Do I get to answer that?
Yes, absolutely.
Or would you just like to skip
Sorry
me?
about that. Yes, please, absolutely.
I thought maybe these two had assumed the vote had already been taken. Think of the premise of the question. 35 million Americans or 50 million Americans. We can't give them health care because it'd just be too much burden on us, so let them be on their own. Let them be on their own. Ladies and gentlemen, the richest country on the face of the earth to have Americans who don't have access to affordable quality health care, in my opinion, is not consistent with my faith. Reach out and lift up. Feed the hungry. Care for the sick. Now, Mr. Lawler again talks about the private sector. Let's take care of it. What does this bill do? It sets up a marketplace for private insurance companies to offer their insurance. Mr. Lawler talks about the COLA and Social Security. We force people, of course, to pay Social Security tax, you understand, so that they will have the availability when they're seniors, and you can amortize it so it will be cost effective. That's why we do that. That's why we did that in this plan, so that individuals would not just expect you and I to pay for them, they would participate themselves, because we know inevitably all of us are going to need health care. We ought to participate with all the rest of us in making sure we have a system that provides it. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next question will be, this question will be the last question. It will start with Mr. Schickel. With St. Mary's County unemployment at 12% and Calvert, Charles, Prince George's, and Anne Arundel counties between 7 and 8%, what will you do to bring those numbers down?
Those are the numbers.
Well, as I've already said, politicians in government cannot create jobs. Only entrepreneurs can create jobs. And we've got to get this government under control. We've got to get this government out of our lives. Our business owners have no confidence in this government and the direction of this nation. And if we're going to give them that confidence, we have to get this government out of our daily lives. This government tries to run our daily lives. There is not a single aspect of our daily lives that is not touched by our federal government. Not a single aspect of our daily lives. Now, if we expect people to risk their capital and risk their reputations to create jobs, we've got to let them know that they have the support of a government that's not going to be interfering with every single aspect of their lives.
Mr. Hoyer.
First of all, let me remind everybody, I know it sounds tiring, but under the program that my two friends to my right opposed, we created 21 million private sector jobs. Not government. We created an environment in which 21 million private sector jobs. Under the economic program that Mr. Lawler presumably supports in his Republican Party, we lost almost 9 million jobs. That's a 30 million job turnaround in 16 years. That's why people aren't in pain. What we have been doing is trying to invest in creating that confidence. Now, let me tell you the program I have that I told you I'd refer to. I want Americans to believe they can make it in America. succeed in America, take the opportunities that America has to offer.